It's time to read our last item on the agenda besides e-comments.
Item 9, from the Economic Development Director, Department of Administrative Services, providing an informational report on the preservation of the Milwaukee County collection and the disposition process for surplus property during the Milwaukee Public Museum transition. This item is informational only unless otherwise directed by the committee.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Supervisors. I am Celia Benton, Director of Economic Development in the Department of Administrative Services.
And I'm Erica Gobleya, Project Manager in Economic Development, Department of Administrative Services.
And I am Ellen Sensky. Sorry, my throat is rough.
I got it. Guy Jones, you.
I'm President and CEO of the Milwaukee Public Museum.
Welcome. I'm sorry that you're the last one today. I've been very gracious. Why were you last? I wanted you to have like private space, talking about this, and our full attention. The other aspect, as I've been reminded that I've always put MPM first on some of the other agendas. So today we'll go last, so we can be fair and be equitable, and we'll remember this in the future when we move you up. So with that, love to have your statement today.
Thank you, Chairman. We are here today to provide an overview of the disposition process for non-collection items during the Milwaukee Public Museum transition to a new location. The building is going up. The museum has met the criteria for a $45 million investment, and our county collection will be preserved for future generations. This new museum is an act of preservation, stewardship, and progress. Our immediate focus moving forward is on partnering with the museum on a transparent process for the disposition of non-collection items and on performing due diligence for the future of the existing museum once the museum has moved. We know that change can be difficult, and we have managed our responsibilities with transparency and professionalism. Given this, I am highly concerned about the inaccurate statements that have been made on multiple occasions by members of the public. Here are the facts. The county owns and will continue to own the museum collection. Milwaukee Public Museum is conducting their move in accordance with the American Alliance of Museums accreditation standards. Milwaukee County's legal agreement and governance approvals and professional museum standards continue to guide this process. There has been no change to county ownership of the collection and no violation of the 2013 lease, which brings us here today. In the spirit of transparency, I will hand it over to Erica to discuss the process for the disposition of non-collection items.
Thank you, Director Benton. We have a PowerPoint, if it pleases the committee.
Please.
If you've driven by 6th and McKinley, you can see the progress on the new museum. The Museum of Nature and Culture of Wisconsin. This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity, not just for Milwaukee, but for the entire state. The new building will allow the county's collections to be cared for properly and to make sure this institution continues to serve future generations. The museum has always evolved to meet the needs of the community and the times. It began in the late 1800s and then eventually moved to its first location that was just for the collection, which we now know of as Central Library, and then to its current location. I don't know if we have a name for that one. It's just the Milwaukee Public Museum. And then it moved from under the city's purview to the county in 1976 to 1992. And in 1992, Milwaukee County entrusted the management of the collection to the Milwaukee Public Museum, the nonprofit that was created in 1992 and has cared for our collection for 32 years. And I mean, I think they have done an excellent job. I know that my family loves going to the museum. So why the move? We've talked about this many times, but just quickly to go over, these are pictures of the current state of the building. The current building, though beloved, is outdated and unable to support modern museum needs. It has serious infrastructure challenges and extremely costly to maintain. Simply put, the building is holding back the museum's potential. By moving, we'll ensure that our collections are preserved safely and that we can offer, the museum can offer new and exciting experiences for visitors, and it remains sustainable for decades to come. When complete, the county will no longer bear the substantial operational and capital costs associated with the current building, resulting in an annual operating savings of $2.5 million a year. When we're talking finances, we know how much that means, and tens of millions in capital. The studies from 2015, 2016, 2018, all of the studies have pointed out the $100 million plus in deferred maintenance, needed updates, things that were needed in the near future. It's an expensive building to maintain. With that context in mind, I'd like to now invite President and CEO Ellen Sensky to share more about the detailed packing and moving and preservation process that will bring these collections safely into their new home.
Thank you, and I know that it's been a long day, so I will try to keep this brief. If we move to the next slide. We have not, no, back one. There we go. This isn't the first time that we have moved the museum. And this was just some pictures of moving when we were at the library and then moving across the street. Now, of course, we're moving a little bit further away, and we would say that this is probably not the way we're going to move these collections on the back of a pickup truck. But one thing that we are doing too is we're moving far many more collections than we had in the 1960s. Just as a reminder, the county collections are comprised of all of these different entities. So 1 million plus insects and invertebrates, 800,000 fossils, 300,000 plants, 800,000 vertebrates, and then about 220,000 cultural objects that come from around the world, another 280,000 historical items, and 500,000 pot shards, most of them from Syria, from the Tel Adidi site. So what we are doing as we move, this is just to give you a scope on how we are planning this. So as we look at the exhibits, we have already determined which of the collections that are on exhibit currently will go on exhibit in the new museum. And you can see the document sheet on the right of this slide. That document sheet is being done for every single one of those items so that we can document what it will take to deinstall them, what kind of conservation they need, and what it will take to pack and then move them. So if you look at the Gilbert Island Warrior, which is going on exhibit in the new museum, that actually has 6 exhibit collection items on it. So each of those have been examined and assessed for their fragility, for what it would take to pack them. And to deinstall just this one object and pack it is over 40 hours of time. So this is the kind of assessment that we are doing for each of those collection items. We will also, to deinstall this exhibit, means we have to take the glass out of this because it is impossible to remove that one mannequin with the materials on it through the tiny door that is how we access that exhibit. So we will have to deinstall the glass on this in order to take it out, which means we'll have to deinstall all of the collection items at that time. We are also working on packing up all of the collections that are behind the scenes. To date, we've packed over 500,000 specimens. That includes things from birds to ancient history, potsherds, to some historical items. And of course, each of the collections has a different way of packing and a different thing that we address. So for birds, we can actually kind of saran wrap them into the drawers that we're in. For history collections, if we move to the next, they actually require much more care. And so this is looking inside one of those crates that is packed. What we are doing for every one of the collection items is barcoding them so that we can tie the information for the collection that is in the catalog to this object through that barcode. Each of those objects we have to examine and figure out what is the exact way that we should pack it. What should we pack it with so that if we have some off-gassing going on, it doesn't impact the others. So this is a monumental task. And what we have done is hired an additional 23 museum studies graduates who are helping us to do this. So we are employing a number of people in the museum world through this process. So that's just kind of a brief overview of the packing process for packing up this museum and moving it to the new museum.
Thank you. I think monumental is the word for this move. If anyone's moved apartments, moved houses, you know how much work it is. And this is 400,000 square feet, 4 million objects of importance in the county collection. And I just want to go back to this one slide. So 6 items that were on display, 40 hours of staff time. That's why I'm saying today, this is about preservation of the county collection, those items that belong to Milwaukee County and are being cared for by the Milwaukee Public Museum. And this is how much care they're putting into it and how much time it takes to move the artifacts and the meaningful pieces in the county collection. So that brings us to collection items versus non-collection items. And it's been confusing for people, but I want to try to ease that confusion by going through this. And by actually looking at examples. So collection items are the artifacts, specimens, and objects that are part of Milwaukee County's permanent collection. They're carefully documented, I always say this word wrong, accessioned and stewarded for the public good. They're the heart of the museum. They're what's traveled with when they were at Central Library, and before that, this is everything that's been collected over 140 years. And these, they're the heart of the museum, and they're going to be moving to the new facility. And I want to make that clear. The collection items are all moving either into storage or moving to the new museum. And the only exception would be those items that are so damaged that they might have to be deaccessioned, which would be through the county collection policy that governs how the county's collection is taken care of. And the museum would report to us about those items that aren't able to go with. Now we have non-collection items. These are the things that are the props, the scenic backdrops, the mannequins, display furniture, and other materials that help tell the stories, but are not themselves part of the county's collection. They put the collection on display. They tell the stories that our collection holds. These non-collection items are what we are focusing on today. So one of the examples is the apothecary. The vast majority of items in the apothecary are part of the Milwaukee County collection. And this will be a big move to the new museum, some of them being stored and some of them on exhibit in the new museum. So now we have the candy store, just to give examples of what this looks like. The highlighted items, if you see they're highlighted in blue, all part of the Milwaukee County collection. And then they said the blue Peerless candy tins will be on display in the Haymarket Candy Store in the new museum. And these, outlined in pink, are non-collection items that are used to display the collection items. So the wooden stand, the candy dots, bag of candy on the scale, candy cigarettes. Those are the types of items that constitute non-collection items. More examples, so you can imagine how much of this there is throughout the museum. This is just a handful of pictures of fruits that are not part of the collection. And then all the plants throughout the museum that are used to display the collection but are not part of the collection. These are non-collection items. And that's what we are talking about when we talk about the disposition plan today. Also, the facades, the brick facades, those are, if it's attached to the building, it belongs to Milwaukee County. And there are some cases where it might be a part of the collection item, like possibly a window or a door that are part of the collection, and those would be moving with the museum either to storage or to the new museum. But most of the things that are affixed to the building still belong to Milwaukee County. So now we'll get into the disposition plan. What happens to the non-collection items that are not moving to the new museum or moving to storage? And I want to thank President and CEO Ellen Sensky and all her staff. They have spent many hours working with the county, showing us the collections, explaining the exhibits and the props, and walking through the museum. And I know that many county supervisors have also walked through the museum. With this monumental move going on, they are always willing to take time to work with the county and make sure that they are completely transparent in this process. And that's what we're working with for the guiding principles. These Milwaukee Public Museum non-collection items, we're looking at guiding principles of transparency, public benefit, efficiency, and public safety. So this is the disposition priority, and the disposition plan is attached to this file, so with more details. MPM retains ownership of all personal property, and that would be non-collection items not affixed to or integrated into the building structure and not part of the collection. They have the authority to sell, lease, transfer, or otherwise dispose of such property in the best interests of the museum. And this was part of the 1992 lease, and it's part of the 2013 lease. This has not changed in 32 years. And the museum, even though it's under their purview, has worked closely with Milwaukee County to make sure that this is a transparent process and that the public is aware of what's going on with those non-collection items that won't be moving with the museum. So the first thing is, of course, if the museum can use it, they are taking it. So repurposed by Milwaukee Public Museum into the new museum, and possibly some in storage.
You mean some of the things which we might use in future exhibits will retain too.
And then the next will be the Milwaukee County departments. So again, keeping it in Milwaukee County for the public, if at all possible, those non-collection items. And Milwaukee County Parks has already reached out to talk about the process. So for opportunities to look at, whether it could go to the domes or to other parks locations. Then museums and peer institutions, again, looking at the most public good. Where can these things be viewed by the public? Looking local, if at all possible, and then national too. And then we will look at the Milwaukee Public Museum will consider nonprofits, 501c3s, educational institutions, and I'm sorry, and with the museum and peer institutions, that also includes the tribes, and includes such institutions as the Milwaukee Art Museum, Discovery World, tribal museums, America's Black Holocaust Museum, and others. And then after 501c3s, exhibit fabrication, traveling exhibit production companies, so those companies that go across the United States and possibly internationally and show exhibits throughout the country. And then at the end, if there's things still remaining, there'll be a public offering. MPM will offer property, and it could be through via public auction, online platform, sealed bid, or other public process that's appropriate. Milwaukee County at that time may also offer fixtures. So this would be like the fixtures in the streets of Old Milwaukee, by public auction, online platform, through a request for proposals or other public process. Public notice of sale details will be posted broadly and in compliance with any applicable rules. And then at the end of that entire process, if there's anything left that no one has been interested in, then it would be final disposal. So again, this is a very, very big move, monumental. So the timeline's approximate because we know buildings don't always run on the same timeline that we expect them to, and also packing and moving can take a long time. So we will plan on coming back in the first part of 2026 with a detailed timeline for the county board, as detailed as we can be at that time, again, to keep this process transparent and keep the county board and the public updated. We'll be doing tours with the Milwaukee Public Museum for eligible groups to help to start planning for those items that wouldn't be going with the museum that the county might be interested in, or other museums and nonprofits. And then Q4 towards the end of 2027, and possibly beginning of 2028, public auction after all of the other organizations have taken any non-collection items that they wanted. And then end of 2027, beginning of 2028 would be the final clean out. So public communication, Milwaukee Public Museum has tons of information on their website, is always updating as to, when collection items are being moved out and when exhibits are going to be closed and then will reopen. They're trying to keep things open as much as possible while continuing this process of protecting and preserving the collection items. There's an FAQ page. We'll have the county board file in March, and there'll be MPM website updates. So we will put everyone on notice of what this timeline is going to look like and make sure that everyone is aware of this process. And so here are some resources. And again, if it pleases the committee, there's a video on what's happening to the streets of Old Milwaukee that I found extremely beneficial, and I'd like to share. It's short, 2 or 3 minutes.
Sure.
And 2 years to go until we move into our new home. We're breaking down everything.
Oh, okay. Sorry, hold for just 1 second.
Point of information, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Supervisor.
I don't see it coming.
is the video
Here we go.
that they're about to show publicly available on our website someplace?
Yes, it is.
There it is.
It's available even now.
Thank you.
I know.
First though, just a reminder, the streets of Old Milwaukee is open and will remain open throughout the duration that this museum is open. Will likely be through the end of 2026. The new museum will feature a new Streets of Old Milwaukee exhibit called the Milwaukee Revealed Gallery. Just like the Streets of Old Milwaukee, this new gallery will be open.
Is it playing online?
It was sent to us. It was sent to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is
Yeah,
part of the
look-
PowerPoint.
And this is
If
available.
we could get it sent to us to share, that'd be great because it's really echoey for anyone watching remotely.
Right.
It's impossible to follow.
Great. And this was publicly available now, too? The general public can view this right now?
Yes, in fact, we've shared it on all of our social media channels, and just on our Facebook page alone, it has received over 400,000 views.
Wow.
It's been shared over 1,000 times. It has had over 5,000 likes or loves, and less than 200, sad faces or angry faces. So it's really resonating with people as they really start to understand what the new Milwaukee exhibit will be.
5,000 to 200? That's wow. Very positive. All right. Sorry for interrupting.
I think President and CEO Ellen Sensky always says, Granny is coming with to the new museum. And I know my kids, even as adult, or one of them's an adult, will be excited to be able to go into the Haymarket candy store and still buy the candies. Actually, I like it too. So I will be looking forward to that as well. So as we look ahead, it's important to remember the county's collection, the fossils, the artifacts, the specimens that define who we are, will all be preserved and moved to the new museum or into storage. And again, with the idea that there's going to be more rotating of the collection, we're going to see more of our county collection in the new museum. For the non-collection items, we've built a process that's transparent, thoughtful, and designed to benefit the public. Whenever possible, these pieces will be reused, repurposed, or given new life in ways that continue to serve education and the community. It's more about making sure that everything connected to this museum, collection or not, is handled with care and integrity as we prepare for the next chapter. The results will be a museum that honors our history, meets the needs of today, and inspires generations to come. And we're available for any questions on this disposition process.
Sounds good. Members of the committee, I'm going to turn the lights on. Supervisor Jack Ekblant had his hand up first, so he's first to ask questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I really appreciate the presentation. I did have one follow-up question about non-collection items. I've received several emails from constituents who say that their families had donated artifacts to the streets of Old Milwaukee. Specifically, President Sensky, thanks so much for being in direct contact with me about this. I know that we had unfortunately played a little bit of phone tag about this. I would just be grateful to know, one, is that accurate to the museum's knowledge that there are actually family heirlooms as part of these artifacts? And two, is there a plan for disposition of those?
So if they were accepted into the collection, they are part of the collection, and they will move to the new museum. Likely they were accepted into the collection. I mean, I know that there were also families who reached out about things like a loaf of bread, saying that their family, their grandmother had made the loaf of bread. That loaf of bread not likely accepted into the collection because it would have been baked and then shellacked. And those have a very short shelf life, and there, in fact, are a number of families who've given bread, and but they deteriorate over time. So if they are items that were given to the museum as part of the collection, they are part of the collection and going.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Supervisor Ekblant. Other members of the committee? Supervisor O'Connor.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for the presentation. I know there were some opportunities for participation in seeing the packing up close, or at least having it explained. And unfortunately, I had a conflict, so would love to be kept in the loop on any future opportunities. I think that's great to see it up close and personal, so I appreciate that. It was mentioned that the move is being done according to American Alliance on Accreditation standards. So where, for the general public who's more curious about where those standards are, is that something like, do they have their own website and kind of is that available to only museum members, or would the general public be able to see those standards? And then the kind of second part of that is, does that organization, as part of the accreditation process, have any on-site presence throughout the year, whether it's through the move, or do they do, check-ins physically at different points, or is it a matter of what is submitted to them to keep the organization in good standing?
So the answer to the first question is yes, there is a website. The Alliance of American Museums, or American Alliance of Museums, and you can go on, and anybody can go on. There are parts of it that are restricted to members, but if you want to understand the accessioning and deaccessioning process, that's on there. As far as the accreditation process, that's something you go through every 10 years. Mm-hmm. You submit all your paperwork, and then they do a site visit. And so they don't check in between those times. But we are following our, that collections policy plan, which this board approved. That goes through that whole process. And so we abide by that process. That process is approved by the AAM. And so during that accreditation process, they check and make sure that everything you're doing is on the up and up. So, and then you abide by it. And we are an accredited museum. We are not going to not abide by it.
Right.
That's what we do as professionals.
Thank you. Chair, may I ask a follow-up question?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. So my understanding is that Milwaukee Public Museum is able to proudly claim the origination of the Milwaukee style that has these really sort of expressive dioramas and settings for the objects. So I heard an interesting argument be made that some of the non-collection items almost have achieved like collection status because of their iconic setting. So have any items, or are any items under consideration for being added into the collection, even though previously they were considered sort of like non-collection items because of their relevance to the development of the Milwaukee style?
The Milwaukee style actually comes, we can claim that the Akeley diorama, which is movable, was the original Milwaukee style. And so that is coming. That was built in 1890, and so that actually has achieved that level.
Okay.
So that will be coming.
Great, thank you. And then, sorry, just one more question. In the sort of hierarchy of disposition, fabrication and traveling exhibits was above the general public auction, online, however those things will be disposed of. Would any consideration be given to maybe flipping those two? In my mind, I guess the general public auction might keep things more local than having it go to a traveling exhibit. Again, if that's something as part of the accreditation process, or how did that disposition hierarchy get established? Thanks.
It was more so in keeping things in the public realm, and so those companies that travel exhibits, they keep things in the in the public realm, whereas an individual buying a piece of fruit, it ends up in their home, and so it may end up locally, but it's not in the public, for public consumption.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Other committee members? All right. Seeing none, we have members of the general public that would like to make comments. I have 3 cards before us today. The first person who will be going up will be, I think it's an L, but it could be a C, Scott Bush. Is it L or is it C? Oh, he left. Okay, he was going to speak against. The next person up is Corey Hughes.